Okay. January 3rd in our new year, 2022. May it be better.
My exact thought.
I almost say it can't be worse, but that would be asking for trouble.
Well, there's at least a possibility that this wave of this last virus is gonna put it into a more benign category sort of automatically. Because I mean, test positivity rate in Georgia has just hit 40%, 40. That means that if you're in a room with 3 people, all of whom are breathing, likely one of them is breathing out COVID.
Well,
So
Is it possible to test for which strain?
it's possible, and I assume that somebody somewhere is doing it because you can get the strain out of the PCR data pretty easily. But I don't know what the strain is. They're saying, I thought they were saying it's pretty much all this Omicron, this super infectious one that nobody knows where they got it. You know, the earlier ones, I'd ask somebody when they say, oh, I've got COVID, I'd say, where'd you get it? And they always knew. And now they don't. So it's, you know, I'm hoping that just being out in the world, my immune system's getting boosted because I'm not getting sick, but.
you mean you think you're getting minimal doses, not enough?
Well, doses that are below the threshold that would make me sick is a good thing, right? So now's the time.
Right. Effective natural inoculations.
Yeah.
And
And that should be going on at a pretty good clip.
if I read the virus right, you know, since it wants to thrive, you know, it'll keep getting milder so that it kills fewer and fewer of its hosts. If it's smart,
A lot of viruses do that. But when you bring that topic up with people, they say, yes, but not all viruses do that. And the example they use is rabies, interestingly enough, which has, you know, because a lot of viruses you can see evolutionarily, they just want to be there and make more themselves, and they're not out to make you sick. And it's the ones that jump species that haven't adapted yet that are the bad actors. And so, yeah.
Does rabies have many variations, mutations?
I don't think so.
Well, then that's why it doesn't attenuate.
Well, no, but it's another RNA virus, and you would it doesn't ever get. I don't know a lot about the details of rabies. Just I know that it's the example they use for a virus that infects a lot of different species and never seems to has settled into any kind of less pathogenic pattern, I guess. So I don't know. We're all learning as we go along, but it's kind of fun that everybody talks viruses today. Fun for me anyway.
Just, I happened to stumble across a movie one night recently, The Bourne Legacy, in which there was a government program to produce enhanced fighters, enhanced physically, intellectually, and a virus was used to to alter their DNA. That was the pseudoscientific plot line. So we'll use that to get into the movie theme. One idea that keeps coming up is that this theory of interrupted or altered evolution, gives us a way of going deeper into ideas that have been around for a good while. That, for example, humans are created by a divinity, and other ideas that, okay, this is how come those ideas have bubbled into consciousness. The other, in kind of reversing that sequence, you could say, well, those ideas, have been the truth of this theory, partially emerging out of mass amnesia. Okay. So I just saw a movie that I would recommend. I would recommend if you were a fan of the original trio that came up, the Matrix series. So number 4 is out, Matrix Resurrections, and it is able to do and grab you in the same way that the original Matrix movie did, which is that the audience and the protagonist for about a third of the movie can't figure out what the hell is going on. It really draws you in that way. The problem, though, with number 4 is to really, really understand what's going on and get it. You have to refresh your memory of number 1 and number 3. Don't necessarily need number 2, but unless those are really clear in your mind, the flashbacks in number 4 don't help enough. With that caveat, it's a really spellbinding film. The reason I bring it up is because it's got some pretty relevant aspects relevant to our story of evolution diverted. One is a broad theme in the movie of the unempowered, the disenfranchised, providing the means of existence for the exploiters. Broad human story. More specifically, what it gives you an illustration, a vivid illustration of humans being in an illusory world, unaware that they're actually slaves. If you don't know the movie, I'll give you a quickie on how that happens. That there's been a war between the machines who took over the world and the humans have been reduced to basically energy producing like batteries. They exist in pods in a vast array, and they're plugged in, and in their minds they're living in the Matrix, which is a vast program that they think is reality. They're living, in their minds, in that 1999 space, even though in actuality they're simply being harvested for their bodily energy, in a pod. So that's a pretty interesting version of humans unaware of how they actually are and and really being slaves. Another piece which comes out towards the end of this movie, and I'm not sure that it's ever articulated in the other 3, and that is the guy who is really a complex program who designs the program. There's a complex figure who designs the Matrix, in the Matrix 4 movie. And it's kind of a little in joke. The figure, the human version of this complex program that designs the Matrix program is a psychoanalyst. Anyway, it's kind of an in joke, you know. But what he says is, you know, when he's confronting the two heroes, the pair that's the heroes, and that is that humans do not want freedom. They do not want self-governance. They want to be sheep. They want to be led. They want a hero who's going to, you know, or they want something that is going to make life easy and comfortable and okay. That's what they want. They don't want the hard stuff. Okay. So that's kind of a zinger towards the end, and you know, that's something to chew over. Another piece that's not particularly relevant to our story, the true story of mankind, but maybe it is. It's not articulated in the tablets, but it's articulated in all the movies, and which is that what really makes everything happen, what really makes things go right, is love, and it happens between the hero and, if I use a dated term, heroine. You know, it's their bond, which not only saves the day, but is actually the basis for the working of the new energy operation in this version of the energy harvesting scheme. Anyway, okay, so that if that's, to the extent that that's true, that humans want to lay back and be dominated, that we're not going to be free of the Trumps and all of the copies and versions.
I mean, haven't we seen illustrations of that, such powerful illustrations? But it's not all of us.
No,
it's about a third. 30% is what the number that keeps coming up.
Well, the percentage was higher in 1930s and 1940s Germany, and a good part of those who were not in that percentage were eliminated, raising the percentage. The percentage was extremely high in Japan, in World War II Japan. So we're in a not totally enviable position, but better than many. We have more than a remnant. So what I'd like to do is because I'm investing a lot of effort, along with my screenwriting buddy Joe, who apparently couldn't join us tonight, in bringing forth a movie, because that's the way stories get told most effectively in our world right now. And since I think they're being told, since well, to some extent, going back at least 70 years, they're being told in bits and pieces. So I'd like to go through that And hopefully you'll pick up, you'll pick up some of these movies. So first there are some categories of films that are bringing the Mesopotamian tale forward as whole categories. The first one, most obvious one to me, is the superhero films, which maybe we're going to get bored of them soon and they're going to fade out. But so far, they seem to be holding a great deal of interest. And with their extraordinary powers and distinctive garb, they are very reminiscent of the lofty ones. And so through them, we tend to recall the gods who once lived among us. And interestingly, they've got cloaking identities as ordinary humans. Kent Clark, Bruce Wayne, and they don't. The necessity of having a cloaking human identity isn't obvious in their storylines. Like, well, why does that have to be? Why couldn't Superman just be Superman? Why is it got to be a newspaper reporter for? And a kind of wussy one too. What I get from that is that it's a reminder, maybe not so subtle one, that we contain the elements of gods within us, because in other words, we're also Clark Kent. We have this powerful, entity within. That's a pretty good reminder that it also and also in literal sense, it allows us to identify with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, because of that human identity. Okay, so that's one whole group of movies. Another is the invasion movies, and aliens arrive on Earth to eliminate humanity, or entrap humanity. And in those, humans, they are threatened in a fictional version of what actually took place, because the Anunnaki did indirectly bring about the end of the most advanced hominin species on Earth, by crafting Homo sapiens. Then there are the disaster movies. Now, some of them have the planet threatened by an approaching celestial body. And that's a recreation, of the close approach of Nibiru that produced the flood. And also the one version of these movies is the force of nature runs amok. Floods, freezing, volcanoes, and that's a recasting of the cataclysm of the deluge itself, which, as far as you can tell, was not just produced by the Antarctic ice cap collapsing, but also volcanoes and earthquakes, and torrential rains. Then there are the movies that involve immortality. Character is endowed with immortality, doesn't age or magically recovers from what ought to be a mortal wound. And that's tapping into our buried memories of the long life of the Anunnaki. And of course, it stirs our longing for that long life. Then the last category, general category, is the movies of possession. An alien mind functioning uh, within human bodies, starting with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but there's also K-Pax, which is really a terrific film, K-PAX, Under the Skin, and The Host, which I'll like to discuss towards the end of this chapter here. So when we came into being, Homo sapiens, and Anunnaki consciousness became a component of our composite human self. So that's getting demonstrated in these possession movies. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit out of order because most of these movies, quite frankly, they're not great films, you know, and not that many people have seen them, you know, which is you know, maybe that's not so significant, since if these themes are coming out of the collective unconscious, you know, I guess they don't have to go too much into the collective conscious. They can just get updated in the collective unconscious, you know. So if the movie doesn't get seen by millions and millions of people, maybe that's okay. But one that did, and is worth mentioning, and it's one of the first, 1968, was 2001's A Space Odyssey. And the big parallel there is that it's just about the only one, as a matter of fact, in all this collection I'm going to go through, just about the only one that has the theme, something happened. Something happened that altered the course of human evolution, different than what it would have been. Now, the actual means in that movie is very different than, you know, what the tablets tell us about biological intervention. It was some kind of electronic, magical, you know, thing that the obelisk did, you know, somehow telepathically or energetically, you know, affected the apes that were around at the time. But still, it has the central idea that something happened that changed the course of our evolution. Earlier, the one early movie that stands out earlier than that was 1951. It was remade in 2008. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Pretty gripping movie, actually. I like the original version better. But an advanced alien is revolted by our way of life on Earth and the way that we're destroying the planet. And he's a representative of some powers, you know, that are going to wipe us out because of how awful we are. And that's very reminiscent of Enlil, who was disgusted with, you know, his take on humanity and was determined to wipe us out. There's in the remake, there's a piece that's not in the original, and in the remake, before the great cataclysm is going to happen, there's a collection of species. Life is being sampled to be preserved after the Great Destruction, which is actually averted, as in the original story and as in reality. Okay, so one of the movies that we're pretty familiar with, and this one has gotten out, and this has had, you know, this has come into the collective consciousness, the Planet of the Apes movies, and these are 9 films actually, starting in 1968. And they've all got a very loud echo of the Sumerian creation epic. A primitive primate is given enhanced abilities in the laboratory of a more advanced primate. Gee, what do you know? Next, in the Star Wars movies, this is kind of reading between the lines, not so much an obvious theme. But here we go, starting in 1977. Humans are living in a galaxy far, far away. And so that plants the idea that what's implied in the Mesopotamian epics, that humanoid lines can develop independently on different planets, that's implied, in Star Wars. So, and anyway, so not the implication is that not only is life ubiquitous, but human life is ubiquitous, or humanoid life is ubiquitous. You just have to go far enough and sample enough solar systems, that's all. Just need a wide enough net. Okay, now, and also another series that, again, between the lines, echoes the tale, the Mesopotamian tale. And that's the whole Star Trek world. So we got 13 films starting in 1979 and 5 TV series. And the echo there is that the prime directive in the Star Trek world, which gets repeated every so often, is that whatever they do, they are not to interfere with the development, the evolution of any advanced life that they find. That leave them alone. Not to mess with any species, social organization, biological evolution. In other words, they are not to do exactly what was done on Earth. So by reflection, it's commenting on the Mesopotamian tale, saying, no, that is something that shouldn't have been done. Now, whether that's true or not, it shouldn't have been done, but that's what the writers are saying. Don't do that. Don't mess with an existing species. In other words, cautionary tale. Now, I'm skipping over Meteor because it was a terrible film in 1978. But just the important piece of it is that in a cometary orbit, a body is coming in through the asteroid belt, threatens the Earth, just like Nibiru did. Okay. We get on to Blade Runner in 1982. Okay. I've seen it a few times, one of my favorite films. And the director clearly felt that the Epic of Gilgamesh was worth redoing in modern form. Now, I doubt that he thought that the Epic of Gilgamesh was anything other than a great story. That he didn't think that it really was the account of a truly living king, Gilgamesh, of Uruk. But nevertheless, he got the human impact of that story, which was, in the retelling in Blade Runner, humanoids are crafted with genetic engineering, and they are in anguish because they have short lifespans. And they travel to Earth, make a dangerous journey. So this is just like Gilgamesh. He's anguished because he's going to die, you know, and he makes a dangerous journey in the Gilgamesh story, you know, to Lebanon from Europe, seeking a life-extending intervention by the powerful being who's responsible for their creation. That's in Blade Runner. But in the Gilgamesh story, he wants to get to King An to ask him for the extended life of the gods. But like Gilgamesh, these humanoid replicants, they're called in the movie, they don't succeed, and they meet their engineered death, just like. Well, we don't get the death of Gilgamesh, but you know we know that he doesn't succeed. Now, that story was powerful enough to get the director. We're going to go out of chronological order here. Get the director to do it again in 2012. Sorry. So, Blade Runner 1982 gets redone as Prometheus in 2012. And here it adheres even more closely to the Gilgamesh story, because the empowered man who is trying to gain eternal life is accompanied by a sentient robot, just like Gilgamesh is. Gilgamesh is his best friend, his best bud, you know, in the original Buddy story, you know, Buddy adventure. His best bud is an artificial man, okay, and that's true in Prometheus. His servant is a robot. Another piece of the Prometheus movie that is, rather than being a piece of the Gilgamesh story that's more accurately represented, it's a piece that somehow comes in from the Mesopotamian tablets, the other tablets, nothing to do with Gilgamesh. And it gets into the story that the engineers for humanity were giants in Prometheus. Not only that, but a critical part of the storyline is that they get interrupted in their process. They don't succeed, but they are planning the destruction of humanity. In that movie, which is really interesting. So the giants are plotting to wipe out their creation on Earth. Doesn't actually happen in the movie, but they trip themselves up and they get fouled up in their effort. So you know. The story based in actual history getting retold. Now here's some other lesser versions, less well known. Movie called Species in 1995. DNA from an advanced alien creature is combined with human DNA, and a humanoid with enhanced abilities is the result, just like Homo sapiens coming out of Homo erectus, using Anunnaki DNA. Pretty straight translation. Another angle on the Mesopotamian tale is the Man from Earth, 2007, little known movie. I don't even think it classifies as a cult movie. I don't think it's gotten that far. But it explores how ordinary people react when they encounter someone whose self-healing and regenerative abilities result in his being able to live for thousands of years without aging. So that's telling what it was like for the humans to live with the Anunnaki. They didn't die. They didn't get old. Well, maybe after 100,000 years they started to get some wrinkles, but they didn't die, and humans just kept dropping like flies. So what it was like, in this movie, the people who are friends with this guy, and they realize, towards as the movie develops, that wait a minute, we've known him for 30 years and he hasn't aged a day, and then they find out that he's been around for a long time. He lets the secret out. They are really, really disturbed by it, and what do you know? That's a big component of our attitude towards the gods. They couldn't help but remind us of our short lives. Another movie which deservedly not famous, called 10,000 BC, came out in 2008, and here an entire society is held in servitude by the minions of a very tall god. And what's interesting is that he is thought to be immortal, but there's a rebellion, and he gets speared, and it turns out that he's mortal after all, which is what happened when the hold of the gods on us weakened and we got disillusioned about them. In Splice, 2009, there's strong parallels with the doings of Enki, Ninmah, and Enlil. There's a male-female pair, Enki, Ninmah, they're genetic engineers, and they use their own DNA, because we're told that Enki used his, in crafting a totally new creature. And what enrages their boss, Enlil, is when some human hybrid sex occurs. Okay. And this has pretty strong parallels with Enki, Ninmah, and Enlil. There's another Earth, 2011, in which a planet closely resembling Earth enters the solar system and transfixes humanity. Well, read Nibiru. In a movie I do not recommend you watch, the same year, 2011, Melancholia, a planet heads for inevitable collision with Earth. Now, in Thor, superhero movie, 2011, a big year for the Mesopotamian tale. Thor is a being possessed of a powerful weapon, and he comes to Earth. Along the way, one of the female characters gives the opinion about that when others of his kind came to Earth, traveled to Earth in earlier ages, earlier times, when people were less sophisticated than they are now, they were thought to be gods. Gee, what do you know? So that's what she's describing, is how humans actually viewed the weapon-wielding giants in Mesopotamia. It was easy for them to present themselves as gods. Okay. Now in the sequel, The Avengers, the brother of the alien in Thor comes to Earth. His evil brother comes, and he wields his own super weapon. And there's just this great scene where he tells a crowd of cowering human beings that they were born to serve ones just like him. Perfect repeat. This is exactly what humans were told under the Anunnaki, born to serve them. Here's one terrible movie with a great title, Cowboys and Aliens. You're muted, Linda, but that's okay, you know, you want to be, okay. Aliens come to Earth to extract gold. Da-da. And by the way, they also treat the humans that they encounter horribly. But the main thing is they came for gold. What do you know? Okay, and the one that's in all of these that is my favorite, my personal favorite, didn't get too much play. The Host, it was called, 2013. John Hurt plays another one of his, you know, sci-fi heroes. And in this one, a gentle alien life form. It's depicted as little ghost-like things with tentacles that float around. Very, very delightful, like flowers. They arrive and they aim to optimize life on Earth by entering every human's body and supplanting the human consciousness with their own. So it's got elements of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But the possessed humans are, until later in the movie, they're depicted as, you know, just in a human body, this advanced consciousness just operating a near perfect world. Now, one of the humans who's forced to undergo this combination procedure somehow keeps the alien mind from totally taking over. She's not, her awareness is not fully eclipsed. And the two of them, the human mind and the alien mind, are engaged in a complex relationship as the story evolves. Now, no Mesopotamian tablet speaks of any inner conflict of this sort. Anunnaki consciousness, Homo erectus consciousness, Homo sapiens consciousness, you know, and is unlikely that any such text ever existed. Who would dare, you know, articulate a struggle of minds? We can surmise though, and I think we've talked about it, that such a conflict was a reality in our early life, and that it's still with us, you know, a component of the human condition. Unintegrated, independently functioning consciousness, Homo erectus consciousness, Anunnaki consciousness, the confused early Homo sapiens consciousness, never fully integrated, somehow existing, coexisting. That's what we've been speculating about. Now, this film does more than reflect on this kind of merger, because it looks forward to a resolution of a divided internal state. Towards the end of the movie, to the amazement of everybody, a way is found to allow each mind, each of the two minds, to live in awareness of the other, in harmony and love within the human body. You know, this discovery brings joy to everyone who witnesses the first such event. And then it's revealed that the conflict that we've seen in the film's heroine between the two, the two consciousnesses which are competing, that's been going on covertly in every single one of the humans that's been possessed by the alien mind. That the human mind has not been eliminated; it's just been suppressed and never expressed.
Mike, this is a movie called The Host. Did you say?
Yes.
The Host. From what year?
2013. Now there's
Okay.
I think there's another movie called Host.
Oh, there are four or five movies called The Host.
Okay.
And so the 2013 one looks to me to be a part of a series, the Twilight Saga series. Is that right? Did I find that?
I don't know about the series.
Yeah, it's by the author of the Twilight Saga, Stephanie Meyer.
That's the, I mean, it's drawn from a book by her.
Oh, no, this looks wonderful. Oh, I want to see this.
It's captivating. It's
Yeah. It sounds like, sorry.
Yeah. No, what I like is when in one of the early scenes, when we have this perfect world, the cars are shining. They're shiny metal cars with no paint, and all of the office workers are on Apple computers. Anyway,
that's the description of a perfect world.
Yes.
2013. There you go.
Anyway, so what it means is that that every suppressed human mind has been longing for freedom, but was unable to make its plight known. And when it becomes clear that all humans can have their freedom without totally dislodging the implanted aliens, because the attempt at that procedure, when attempted before, we didn't see it, but we were told about it. Every time it's been attempted before, both creatures died. Both the human host and the implanted alien both died every time they try to get the alien out. Okay, to free the person. So it's not a matter of getting the alien out. It's a matter of eliciting a cooperative relationship within the one body. So it ends with humanity looking ahead to an existence that's enriched by the presence of advanced consciousness. In a loving symbiosis. And the alien beings, they're looking forward to true acceptance. They don't have to dominate. So to me, it's more than a story with a happy ending. I put it this way: the message from the collective unconscious. Two different forms of consciousness can dwell in peace and love in a composite being. To the benefit of both. It can be done. Take heart. The cosmic leap involved in your diverted evolution, two beings merged to reside within a third, that leap can yet produce a glorious result. To me, that's the hidden optimistic message, in the movie. It's like, oh, right, and I mean, so it's a very good depiction of what the future might hold. what we have reason to hope for. So I think I want to pursue the work of that writer. I didn't know about it, so you'll lend the.
Yeah, no, I don't, I just, what that, I had never really put all that together, Mike. That's really powerful storytelling there.
I think it is.
It really is. It's one of those things when you have your podcast to go with a movie, you want to spend at least one whole session going. That's a real tour de force. It says our imagination hits on this story and only this story over and over and over again. I have to tell you, when you first started, the first thing you said was, you said, you know, all of our religions imagine us as a species made by a creator God. And I realized when you said that, it had never occurred to me in my life there was another way to imagine us. You know, it was just like, what? Of course. Because it's so a part of, and to see all those movies lined up is with the parallels to the tale. I'm trying at the moment to get other people interested in this. You know, I start out by saying, you know, forget about conspiracy theories. We're gonna go for the truth, and then the truth is, and
The truth is worse than the conspiracy theory.
It always gets a good laugh. I will say that, but I'm starting to think this is true. And it just kind of recapitulates itself over and over and over again. It's just fascinating. It really is.
It is, but it is so hard to get people interested.
I know.
You know, it's got a problem that Wilhelm Reich said was a problem with his discoveries, a problem of too muchness. It's just, you know, it just shakes up too much of your existing, you know, thought structure. That you know, anyway, that's why I'm putting all my chips from well, not all my chips, but you know, but all of my, you know, the most of my effort, you know, into a movie, because that is the only way, getting it out as a story with all its complexity, but with a storyline like in The Host or like in Blade Runner, you know, that's powerful enough to engage the audience from beginning to end, you know, and implant it.
It's funny, I didn't realize that Blade Runner was the Tale of Gilgamesh. I watched the second movie, well, the current movie, and I didn't understand it. I had to go back and watch the first one again. The
first one was better.
Well, I thought they were both good. But I had to see the first one in order to, even though I'd seen it years ago, I had to be current with it. And I've just ordered for right on Amazon right now. You can get the DVD of all 3 Matrix movies for under $9.
Oh,
and so and there's an animated something too. So it's 4 movies for under $9, and I want to see the most recent one. And I've got to go watch the other ones first, or I won't. Thank you. That I know that's what's happening.
You have to watch one. You have to watch 1, and you have to watch 3. And while you're at it, you might as well watch 2. You know.
Well, yeah, sure.
Before you watch 4.
Right before I watch 4, and 4's going off HBO Plus sometime in the next few weeks, and so I need to get this going. So
yes, yeah. And the sequence with Blade Runner, the one to watch after is Prometheus.
So I'm gonna watch Prometheus soon, maybe tonight. because I hadn't put all that together, but that's a very, very powerful story. And it doesn't seem like they're done with it. But the first one, it's fascinating to see what 1960 something thought 2019 was going to look like.
Which one?
Blade Runner, because that's Blade Runner
yes.
was made in the 60s, but it's set in 2019 with flying cars, of course, flying cars, but it's nothing like what 2019 looks like anyway. Because they extrapolated weird things into the future. They extrapolated that everybody would still smoke and drink. And so you look at an image of 2019 with everybody inside smoking and drinking, and you go, that's not, so but it was, I really enjoyed that sequence. And now I want to see Prometheus. Thank you. And I just think this whole thing is astonishing. Just how it kind of, there aren't many stories that I can think of that are science fiction stories that don't fit into this model. I mean, maybe E.T.
I haven't thought about that. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other subject. Science fiction stories that have nothing to do with the Mesopotamian tale.
Right? You're not going to have, there aren't many, I don't think. I mean, this is amazing. It's like, my God, every one of my favorite movies is on this list too. So, and 2001, I'd forgotten that was clearly an indication of aliens getting involved in taking us from what looked like could well have been,
Like gorillas,
yeah, primates of some sort, but not, yes,
yeah.
to us.
And actually, you don't know whether this was part of the intention, but they had the apes there. We don't know what they were like before they were exposed to the great black monolith,
Right.
but after they were exposed, they picked up bones and were beating each other.
They became more like, yes.
They it made
That's
them
how I saw it.
violent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and aliens come into Mind Gold, exactly. It's just, wow.
Yeah, that one was astounding. It's like, oh, and all of the splicing movies. As far as the possession of the mind goes, K-Pax is interesting. We don't like what's his name anymore. The actor,
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
We don't like him anymore, but he does a really good job in that movie. Okay, so I think we have time to get into a juicy subject, a truly juicy subject that Linda suggested, incest.
That's a great idea.
We call incest.
Well, this has been bugging me for a long time because I knew about the Egyptian stuff.
Well,
and I can't imagine a culture being so short-sighted they wouldn't notice inbreeding effects, that they wouldn't notice that there's brother-sister matings lead to problems, health problems. Don't you? I mean,
as in the Amish.
Well, or yeah. I mean, I don't want to point any fingers here, but I mean, even back then, you would have thought there was enough ability to observe. I mean, for crying out loud, people were vaccinating back in ancient China. There must have been in Egypt, there must have been reasons, even if they didn't have. It sounds like from that article, that was a good article, I thought, It sounds like it wasn't always a taboo, incest.
Well, well, that's not clear, but
Yeah.
one of the things about the incest amongst the elite, the nobles, was that it did distinguish them from the masses. You know, it was okay for them. They could do it. Now, you know, we've reasoned, people who have looked at this have reasoned that amongst the elite, there were some advantages that that compensated for the potential for genetically rooted troubles showing up. One was that it did establish their exclusivity. They were different. They had this privilege. That was one. Another, they were somewhat taken with, if not obsessed, with establishing the purity of their lives.
Right, but that's right there is the reason behind that is because their lineage came from the gods. And they say that in some cultures, they actually use those words. So, I mean, it's one thing I can understand that
it is emulation of the gods, you know, to keep our line pure.
Than that. I think that those demigods, those people that were the result of inbreeding, were different than ordinary humans, right?
Yeah. They wanted to stay that way.
And that only way they're going to stay that way, the only way they're going to pass that lineage on is if they inbreed as much as they possibly can. And so the question then becomes why? Is it just something to know that your grandmother was so-and-so? I don't think so. I think the reason they did it was because they wanted to retain something to the next generation, something that the Anunnaki part of their heritage could do or feel or accomplish or whatever it was. And that they did the inbreeding because they had to in order to maintain whatever capacity that was.
They would breed with each other or breed up and marry a god, you know, even better.
Well, but once the gods left, that wasn't an option. And so, you know, and when did
once
the gods
they left, that's true. But while they were around, they did.
Or something.
While the gods were around, they could.
Right.
Gilgamesh's lineage was that his father was a man of renown. His mother was a full-blooded goddess. Right. So that's why he thought that he had rights to get the bread of life and the water of life, that he could be awarded that. His mother said, ain't gonna happen. but he, you know, he went for it.
But he never got it, right? Did he ever get it? No.
No. Now, one of the justifications for the elite, you know, once the gods were gone, in addition to everything else, was preserve wealth, because you don't you keep it all in the family. It's Cosa Nostra. It's our thing, you know. We'll keep it to ourselves. Now, it was in the world of Nibiru, of the Anunnaki. That was pretty clear. Ninmach, well, first An, king of Nibiru, was married to his half sister Anatu. Okay, and they out of that union there was Enlil. That's reflected, by the way, in Abraham and Sarah. Sarah was Abraham's half sister. You know, no, you got to keep updating the story. Anyway, Enki and his half sister Ninmach produced twin girls. They're not named as far as I can tell in the tablets, but Enki and Nimach had offspring. And then Nimach and Enlil produced Ninurta, who became Enlil's, who got Enlil's birthright eventually. And then there's a hint of incest even in Inanna's name. Inanna, that's an epithet, because she was also known as Irene, and then later on down the line in the later languages, she's Astarte, and I forget who else, but she's the model for Aphrodite. Actually, the model for Aphrodite and Athena. I think they had to deconstruct her because she was too powerful, but that's my hypothesis. Anyway, in the name Inanna means beloved of An. And An was her great-grandfather. So there's a hint, that they had a thing going. And, and since they lived for so long, you were a contemporary of your daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, you were both grown-ups, and Inanna married Dumuzi, and Dumuzi's grandfather was An, and Inanna's great-grandfather was An. That, by the way, contributes to some of the confusion, in the what I consider, understandable mistranslations. Inanna is called the Queen of Heaven because An it's also an epithet. He's the heavenly one. An is also heaven. So she's beloved of An, who's named after heaven, and Enlil, by the way, the Lord of the pronouncement, the Lord of command, Enlil, okay? That gets mistranslated as the god of the wind, for the wind coming out of his mouth. Anyway, yes, the pharaohs, famous for incest, okay, and their story, one piece of their story comes to us through Sophocles, because in Velikovsky's terrific book called Oedipus and Akhenaten, okay, Amenhotep IV becomes a monotheist and is renames himself Akhenaten. Okay. Now there's already a sign that he's showing some disturbance of inbreeding, because he's always depicted as someone with a mucopolysaccharide disorder, a connective tissue disorder. His feet are distorted, his lower legs are distorted, his head is elongated, okay? He's got a very, very funny shaped head, which they accurately depict. Now the link with Greece is interesting because lots of things went from Egypt to Greece. Oedipus means fat foot in Greek. Ed as in adipose tissue, pus as in ped for pedestrian. Okay, so the Thebes, the curse of Thebes in the Greek play was really originally in Thebes, Egypt, the royal city in Egypt. Okay. Velikovsky speculated that Oedipus brought back a particular form of incest from his time spent in the Assyrian court, that is son-mother incest. Hence the Oedipus complex. Okay. His Akhenaten produced Tutankhamun, his son, King Tut, with his sister. And King Tut had some heart tissue, some bone disease. So yes, from the Anunnaki to the demigods, to the royals of closer to our times. And you know, the obsession, you know, with bloodlines today, you know, whether it's the House of Windsor, you know, or the Kennedys, you know, there's this obsession, which has a long tail to it. TALE. So thank you for bringing up the subject. We don't, you know, what we don't know is whether how much of a downside it had amongst the Anunnaki, you know, the inbreeding. We know, you know, the history, the picture of life on the Bureau is very spotty. You know, there's not that much in the tablets about what came before. There's some, but not that much. Personally, I'm convinced that a piece of their evolutionary history on the Bureau is that they went through a phase of being an aquatic ape, and that's where all of our marine adaptations come from. It's a part of the package deal of their insertion of chromosomal material into Homo erectus, that along with wanting a servant who had smooth skin, not fur, you know, and could stand upright instead of kind of bowed forward, looked like them more, you know. Part of that package deal was
And light skinned, was that part of the package?
No.
Really? So they weren't light skinned themselves?
Oh, they were, but that was
I
not.
thought-
It was not a dominant. It was not a dominant part of the package. The first humans were dark.
Mhm.
They didn't become light until the men of renown. That was one of their quote advantages: height, social endowment, probably intelligence, you know, and lighter skin, and
But
longer
these
life, and longer
These
life.
were hybrids, human
Hybrid.
Anunnaki hybrids, were the men of renown?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's okay. And when did that start?
I don't think. When did that start? Okay, good. Let me see. I maybe I got some hint about it. I'm not sure I did. I'm looking at the chronology, the proposed chronology. Don't know. Don't know. It's before the flood.
Was probably maybe the reason for the flood. No,
No,
I mean,
no. no.
the fact of the hybridization being.
Okay, okay. It could probably reconstruct it to some extent, because it was that hybridization. I never tried to reconstruct that piece of it. It was that hybridization of the Anunnaki commoner males, the bachelors, with the original human female, small, dark, that so disgusted Enlil.
Right.
He
Okay.
wanted to wipe out humanity, and began a campaign which coincided with a period of glaciation and aridity of much of the planet, and a great plunge in human populations. Okay, now according to the story in the tablets, he was actively trying to wipe out humanity, and Enki kept foiling his plans. He told Enki to not allow humanity to have access to seafood because he was the lord of the sea, and then eventually Enki formed instigated a rebellion. But and so when the flood came along, when the flood was in was in the offing, when Nibiru was coming, was clearly going to come too close, then Enki was happy that a natural catastrophe was going to do the job for him.
Enlil was.
Enlil.
Enlil was happy.
Enlil. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm getting it.
Oh, another Brenner. That's not me.
Yeah, this Brenner's been around for about 25 minutes. I couldn't get on sooner, damn it. I wish I knew what the hell goes on, but I got it finally.
Well,
And you were at your best, so I'm very happy to get into it.
okay. But you'll be able to catch it soon. I'll be in touch with Sandy, and she'll get it on the website and on YouTube. So you
Great.
just go to YouTube and click on your favorite media star,
Yes.
and you'll get the January 3rd version from the top. So we could probably get some approximate date for that, for what gets retold in Genesis, when it's also retold elsewhere in some apocryphal books that never made it into the Hebrew Bible. This mixing. So we can probably get an approximate date on it. It's certainly a good deal old, maybe 20, 30,000 years before the flood, which was around 11,000 BCE. So we can get some guess about it.
So this all started, let me see if I've got this, a little more than 200,000 years ago.
The whole deal,
Yeah.
the original colonization was around 400,000 years ago.
400,000 years ago. Okay. But they're genetically modifying us was around 200,000 years ago. Do I have that right? Because that's about the time the human brain capacity.
Miners mutiny from, if the way it's told, how many measured periods had elapsed by the time they mutinied, that would put the mutiny at around 310,000 BCE. Okay. So the earliest findings of Homo sapiens Neanderthal, no, okay, they mutiny then, and that's when, according to the tablets, the crafting of Homo sapiens was authorized around 310,000 BCE. The earliest findings of Homo sapiens neanderthaliensis is 250,000 BCE. Okay, so there's a gap there of 60,000 years in the tablets, before the first Homo sapiens appeared. In the, I call Neanderthal man the last of the work in progress versions. And Homo erectus dies out in Africa about 200,000 BCE. The earliest Homo sapiens sapiens fossils are 150,000 BCE.
I
Now,
think that line's it may be gonna move a little bit though.
yeah. This
They
is
do tend to.
um,
They do tend to. But this is, and the flood was, you said 11,000, 12, 13,000 years ago.
The global deluge. Again, if we use the King's lists, 11,356 BCE. To go back to the Homo sapiens fossils, at 150,000 BCE, that's also the approximate date for the appearance of the modern Y chromosome. And also the origin of the species as determined by mitochondrial DNA conformity. So the picture comes together at around 150,000 BCE for the definitive version. Okay, so what's told in the story, the tablet story about this magnificent work in the laboratory, it was in a condensed version, you might say fit for human consumption. It probably went on for a much longer time. Lots of mistakes. A lot of the development may have been more in vivo than in vitro. Experimentation, who knows? We're talking, there may be essential truth, I think, in the tales about what happened in the house of the breath of life. That's what they call the laboratory. But that really could be a condensation of what happened over tens of thousands of years.
Oh, sure.
Because time meant nothing to these guys. And we really also don't know about their long lifespans. We're not sure that they lived in full consciousness for that length of time without.
So there might have been you're thinking there might have been some technological sleep period when the planet was too far from the sun or some such thing. So,
and that they kept that going when they came to Earth. So that,
but didn't their lifespan get shorter when they came to Earth? Didn't the young'uns not live as long? Wasn't that part of the problem with being here?
The ones who were born on Earth did not have such long lifespans. And what's indicated in the tablets is those who were born on Nibiru and came to Earth, in spite of getting the bread of life and the water of life from the home planet, they were visibly aging more than their peers back home.
So they didn't really want to stay here.
That's right. After they really blew it with the nuclear war, it's like, what's the purpose? Why keep hanging on here?
So
Uh,
their nuclear war was here. They didn't have a nuclear war on Nibiru, right?
Not that we know about, but that was the one in this that blew up the Sinai.
Right.
Goodbye, Sodom and Gomorrah. And 3 other cities at the same time.
That was their nuclear war.
Yes, they nuked each other. Um,
Mommy and daddy are fighting again. No, I have just realized I've been going through something with a group, a spirituality group recently, and I get completely non-functional when mommy and daddy are fighting. And it all goes right back to the same story that we got created in a kind of essential conflict. And when that conflict is up, it's like my brain won't even work. It's real interesting, actually.
The particular conflict, though, it is was not mommy and daddy, it was brother and brother.
Well, but yes, but there was a conflict going on that was affecting me, that had my betters that I could have no impact on. So that sense of helplessness is a very powerful, disempowering feeling. It's just been, so I'm just into this right now. So but it all fits.
Yes. And to go back to the opening of tonight's, close to the opening of tonight's talk, or tonight's discussion, how the sheep not only want to be led and not responsible for their own fate, but they're also looking up to some great figure, some powerful figure that's, which of course comes down to us through the Hebrew Bible. Okay. And when you read that, as I've done in this last year, some, and raised the question, how, pardon the phrase, how in heaven's name, could people developing a new faith come up with that as God? I mean, that, demanding, selfish, insanely narcissistic, vindictive, exclusive, punishing, and dealing God, you do what I say and I give you the land. And the most horrible thing you can do that in my eyes, and this is in the first commandment, the most horrible thing you can do is worship one of those other gods.
Right.
Where could they get that other than by updating humanity's obeisance to the god of their city, to a Mesopotamian self-deified giant? Where could they get it other than that's all they'd known for tens of thousands of years? That's all they'd known. So they, so as the gods were fading out and becoming less powerful, they're in this transition period before the gods finally disappeared in the mid-6th century. Okay, and there are some really interesting overlaps between late Mesopotamian tablets, and early biblical stories. But that's, of course, that's what comes to us through the monotheisms. Even when they, their attempts to soften in the picture, and bring in love with Jesus, still, one way or another, the punitive God of fire and brimstone, and other punishments, is never dropped, never been dropped, at least in the monotheistic traditions. And the sacrifice for the God, self-sacrifice for the God, your life being worth nothing. You couldn't get a better example than the suicidal Japanese in World War II, who were happy to die for the emperor who was a god. And of course, the same thing happened with the fanatics that were serving Mao and Mussolini and Hitler, who were treated like gods. They had the mantle, they carried the mantle of the Anunnaki lords. Pretty undiluted inheritance. It's like it just keeps popping up throughout history, just keeps popping up again, until it won't, hopefully. Until someday we find a way to prevent that from happening all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we'll cycle through it endlessly. It's so deep. So deep. Well, I'm going to read more in this book, hopefully before next time. I didn't reverse it, but the dawn of everything, a new history of humanity.
Hold it up again. Would you hold it up again?
Is it backwards? I can reverse it.
It's fine.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to see it.
Yeah, it's not light reading.
Uh-huh. Well,
Can you summarize it for us?
Pardon me?
Can you summarize it for us?
Yeah, we talked about a little bit last time, that it's possible to have a sizable settlement, tens of thousands, organized without hierarchy, usually on a geometry that's more circular than grid-like, and it's possible to have a sizable community that's organized on organizational lines that we now associate only with smaller groups, with smaller indigenous groups, self-governing councils, that apparently was possible to do it. And some of the evidence, there was one terrific one that I've got to read in more detail. I just skimmed it tonight in a place called there goes my memory again, but it's right. It's in southern Louisiana. Poverty Point, I think it's its name. Anyways, it was a big enough settlement that the contemporary cities of the time, like Uruk in Mesopotamia, could have fit inside it. So apparently, some this is compatible with our story, although they don't know anything about the Mesopotamian tale. These guys, David Graeber and David Wengro, but apparently, some of the escapees from the world of the Anunnaki, proliferated enough that they had sizable communities. It wasn't just small groups living in the jungle. Cahokia where is that, in Missouri or Kansas? Cahokia had a population of about 20,000, according to the, the houses that have been, not exactly excavated, but located. It's so hierarchy, dominance, submission, is not an inevitable consequence of sizable numbers. I mean, that's their message, so that fits with our story very nicely, I think, that humans who either didn't want to drink the Kool-Aid and got away, or never even got to Mesopotamia, but slipped away from Africa, before being very much enslaved, found natural and environmentally respectful ways to live, and socially egalitarian ways to live, and were able to establish sizable societies before they got overwhelmed by empire, by civilization. So it's unfolding. This is perfectly compatible. My frustration is, like, love to get in touch. One of these guys is surviving. Love to get in touch, but the problem is that those who have a fairly comprehensive theory that sits outside the mainstream, they get very protective of it, and they don't see an easy way to integrate it with some other outside the framework theory, but that it just takes hopefully it just takes another generation for that to happen. Hopefully.
That's a very good point. I want to tell you that. What you're saying makes a lot of sense, especially trying to tie together some of the outliers that should converge in various ways, so they can do some kind of synergy and some sort of a melding or blending of truths. If we're finding truths on the outside, for God's sakes, let's connect with it in the various ways that we can. You can't depend on conventional thinking. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And even the unconventional thinkers, get egoically connected with their discovery, their invention, become protective. But that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And yes, it may require one or two more generations for integration to happen. I think my throat's about to go. So we had to say goodbye to Jim, who left us about 20 minutes ago. See you all next month. Let me see, whatever the first Monday is in February. And who knows? We'll probably do some of this accounting of these other great cities, earth mounds, and as we said last time, the tradition amongst the Native Americans is that these mounds and these and some of them, huge, some of them ziggurat-like, were built by giants.
Yeah.
Not us, they say, wasn't us, wasn't our ancestors. You know, our ancestors crawled over the Bering Strait Bridge, but these guys came from somewhere else and they were giants. And that's a fascinating part of the story, of course. Okay. Night all.